Hello and welcome to another video where we're demonstrating a motorhome and running you through the instructions. This time it's the 2020 Carado T449. So we'll run you around the outside and then we'll move on to the controls on the inside, showing you the main features. Okay, so the cab door. On this side of the dash here we have the bonnet release. That's where you undo the bonnet. We've got the fuel, diesel fuel into here. You do need the engine key to open that up. And then underneath that we've got the AdBlue additive. This is an additive to make it pass the emissions regulations. There's a indication on the dash. When this needs filling, it will tell you on the dash and it actually counts down in mileage. Just be careful that you don't let that go empty, otherwise you'll send the engine into limp home mode. So you've got two access hatches here. You've got your diesel fuel and your fuel additive. All the fuel stations now have got the pumps that pump out the AdBlue now. So all diesels, all modern diesels have got that system. Okay, so with the bonnet catch open then, just lift the bonnet. Okay, so quickly under here, we've got washer fluid fill, coolant, brake fluid reservoir, dipstick, engine oil fill. If you ever need to jump start this vehicle or jump start another vehicle from it, then the positive terminal for doing so is underneath this flap here. Sometimes you might need to just put the key in to open this flap up. And then it reveals a metal blade, which is this here. So your positive terminal, your red cable goes onto there, and then your negative or earth black cable goes onto this here. So that's how you jump start it or jump start another vehicle from it. The engine battery isn't underneath the bonnet on these. The engine battery is located underneath the panel, passenger side footwell, underneath this panel here. Okay, so we'll move on around in an anti-clockwise direction to fill the water tank full of water. It's done so via this here, and you just put a hose pipe into that until it literally pours out onto the floor. You do need the key for this, and to open it you need to turn the key inside the barrel like so, push this in and turn it. And then you just literally put a hose pipe into there until it pours out. This motorhome's been fitted with a 12-volt socket next to the filler. That would be if you wanted to have a submersible pump plugged into this and then a container of water on the floor. You could pump from that into the tank, but it somewhat defeats the object of having a tank. So you might as well just fill it with the hose pipe as directed. Underneath that is the waste tank. So you can see that pipe there. That's where so everything that goes down the kitchen sink, down the shower, is collected in a waste tank, and it's emptied, and it comes out of this pipe here. To do that, you turn this bar here, and there will be a tool for that, which I'll need to locate. It'll just look like a key or a handle that you put onto there and turn it. So I'll make sure that's present, but it's probably in the pack inside, but we'll run through that when we go inside. So you've got your wastewater tank and your freshwater tank. It's critically important that you drain down that freshwater tank basically whenever it's not in use. If water's left in there and it freezes, it will expand inside the tank and crack the tank, and it's an expensive repair, but we'll come to that in more detail when we go inside. But similarly, the wastewater tank needs to be drained whenever the vehicle's not in use. You don't want stagnant water sitting in those tanks. Okay, so this is a garage model. We've got the garage locker doors open here, and in here is where the gas bottles would sit. Okay, so this will, by the looks of it, it may take 2 13s, but I think you're probably better with 2 6 kilograms. So 2 6 kilogram gas bottles will be required for your gas supply on this motorhome. This item here is a pressure regulator, so that regulates the pressure that's coming out of the bottles. This hose here attaches onto there, and then this end goes onto your gas bottles. It's reverse thread onto the gas bottles. Okay, so we have as I say, this is a garage model. We've got a ladder there for the bed, which we'll come to when we go inside. There's a winder there for the awning. There is a separate video on our YouTube channel which shows you how to operate awnings. That is a puncher repair kit. There is no spare wheel, so if you get a puncher, you need to use this kit, which has got a compressor in it, and it's got a fixing mousse inside, which will fix your puncture. The catches on the garage door are locked like so, so you turn them clockwise, and then you need to lock the barrel and then push this in. So at the moment it's unlocked. I've got the key and just turn that. See if I can do it. Okay, turn the key and then push it in. That's how you lock those. Okay, so this model's got a bike rack. To operate the bike rack, I'll just undo this strap. Okay, so the bike rack, to operate that, you slide this section down. The wheels go in these rails here, and you put the strap over the top of the wheels to keep the bike in position. These bars then go onto the crossbar. If you lift them up like so, they go onto the crossbar or the down bar on the bikes to keep them in position. So you've got two rails, wheels in here, and these bars go onto the crossbar. Okay, so it looks like there's a reversing camera. That's the lens for it, just needs to be kept clean. Obviously you can get condensation building up on those sometimes, but as long as that's kept clean, you should get a clear view through your camera. We've got the other side of the garage here. This is a tool kit. Although there isn't a spare wheel, that's where the tool kit is. There's a socket in here, a main socket. These are tie down points. If you unscrew those, they can be moved up and down, so if you've got items in here you need to secure, that's what they're for. You've also got a heater in here, so the heating is channeled through into the garage. This is a tensioner bar for the awning, but again there's a separate video on our YouTube channel that will instruct you on how to operate the awning. Okay, so working on around the motorhome then. So we have, just above this axle here, we have the toilet cassette. So all the toilet waste ends up in this vessel in here. So open that up, and then to empty this, to slide this out, you pull this lever up like so, and then slide this cassette out. Okay, so in theory then this would be full of toilet waste. To empty it, you slide this nozzle forward like so, unscrew the cap off the end, and then turn the cassette over and pour the liquid away. As you're doing so, press this button in here. It lets air in as the liquid is coming out of the other end to prevent splashes. This cassette requires a chemical to break down all the toilet solids and all the smells. To fill it full of the chemical, you slide that cover back, open this lever up here, and that gains you access into the cassette itself. So once you've emptied it, what I tend to do is fill it full of fresh water, again, swill it around and then empty it again, and then put the required amount of chemical into here. You can also use sachets that are readily available, the Thetford chemical or sachets. So you put the required amount of chemical into here, just put a lining of water into the bottom, close it back up, and then it's ready to use again. This cassette has wheels on the bottom, as you can see there, and an extendable handle on the top here. When you've emptied it, just slide it back into its position like so. You must ensure that that nozzle is facing that way like so, otherwise you won't get this back in. Equally, you must make sure that when you're pulling this out, the blade inside, which is, so you can control this valve here from inside the toilet, which we'll come to when we go inside, that must be closed. If you try and pull this out when that's open, you'll damage the mechanism. Okay, so that slides back in easily. These are vents for the fridge. Okay, so you've got one there, one there. What it does is it draws cool air in at the bottom, expels warm air at the top. Obviously these are vents, and they're venting into the motorhome as well as out. So when you're washing it, just make sure that if you're using a power washer, don't spray up into those vents, because it's basically an open vent into the vehicle. You've got your awning light there, and the mains electric feed goes into this here. So the main supply for the motorhome, so that will engage your charger unit and allow you to use mains appliances inside the motorhome. That's where the main supply goes in. Okay, so we'll move on inside the vehicle. Okay, so just a little bit of advice on the cab. This has got swivel seats, and then to swivel those seats, it's this little lever here. So if you pull that way, and then that will allow you, it releases the mechanism, and it'll allow you to swivel the seat. So I've just pulled that mechanism, and as you can see, the seat then swivels. Exactly the same on the driver's seat, which I'm sitting on here. So you just pull that lever like so, and that will allow you to swivel the captain's chairs around. Okay, so when we were outside, I mentioned about draining down the fresh water tank. The water tank is underneath this forward-facing dinette here, so I'll just remove those cushions and show you how to drain that down. Okay, with the cushions removed, you can probably see that pipe there. That's where the water comes in as you're filling it from outside. And the water tank is just underneath the seat, basically. Okay, so you've got a hatch that will gain you access into the tank itself. If you ever, this maybe is just for cleaning or sanitizing it. If you ever open that up, make sure that it's closed really tightly, because obviously you're going to fill this full of water. If water reaches this level here and it isn't tight against the seal, you'll get water seeping out the top. To drain this down, it's this lever here. Okay, so only do this finger tight. So I'm closing it here because we're going clockwise. Okay, so that's just finger tight there, that's closed. That will retain all the water within the tank. To drain it down, as I say, for winter or when it's laid up and not in use, you turn this anti-clockwise and you'll hear a click. That will drain it down to 20 litres. If you then further open it up, that will drain it fully. Don't turn this all the way around. Once you've heard the click, just basically give it another turn and a half. Okay, so the reason for it draining down to 20 litres is that you can calculate your weight. So 20 litres of water is 20 kilos. Okay, so I'm going to close that back up. Again, just do it finger tight. So that's the fresh water tank, and I can't emphasise enough how important it is to get all the water out of this motorhome. In freezing conditions, if water's left in there or in any of the pipe work, you'll damage the motorhome. Okay, so while we're here, I'll just work through methodically. So this is the control panel. Okay, so this is the control panel. Basically that switches on the 12-volt circuitry. So if I'm switching that on and off, all the lights will go off, as you can see. So none of the electrics will work without that being switched on there. If you're plugged in, a little light will illuminate there, so that's important to just check when you're plugged in to make sure that illuminates, because then the control panel's recognising that you're plugged into a main supply. Okay, so the buttons on this side are level indicators. So this is your wastewater tank, as indicated by the outlet on the bottom of the tank. So if you hold your finger over there, it will give you an indication on these levels here to tell you what the level is. Now there's no wastewater in it, so we're not seeing a reading there. The fresh water tank is this one here, so if you press that button, if there was water in it, you'd get a level reading on here. This has all been tested, so obviously it's just picking up minuscule amount of water in the freshwater tank. So this has all been tested to make sure that the levels are all okay. That is your leisure battery. Okay, so you can see how that works. If you pulled your finger over it, it's giving you a level on these voltages here to show you what your battery level is. Next to that we have the heating and hot water control. To wake this up and get it operational, you just press on the wheel on the inside there. Okay, so when it wakes up, this one here is your temperature control, and to go into that menu you press on the wheel like so, and then you select your temperature. So room temperature 21 degrees, give it a press on the wheel, and then that will take the motorhome to 21 degrees. If you want to, I'm just going to switch that off, otherwise we'll get a warning. So that's off. The next one along, if you turn the wheel like so, it's going to take you to your water. Okay, so that's your heating of your water. If you give that a press on there like that, you have Eco, which is 40 degrees, Hot, which is 60 degrees water, Boost, which will take all the power from the heating of the motorhome and allocate it to the heating of the water. So basically what I would do is leave it on hot, and then mix it with some cold through the tap, and then you've got a lot of warm water rather than just leaving it on Eco. Okay, so I'm going to go back to off on that. Next one along is your fuel supply. So by pressing this, you can select whether you want gas only, a mix of gas and electric on 1 kilowatt, a mix of gas and electric on 2 kilowatts, electric only on 1 kilowatts, electric on 2 kilowatts. If you need to come out of any of these menus, if you press this back button, that'll take you back. The next one along, as you can see here, is just a vent. So no heating, just blowing air around the ducts, basically venting the motorhome. You can set your timer via this option here. So if you scroll down to that and went into that, you could set your timer. That sets your clock and time. And then there's a settings menu. I won't go into that now, but there is an instruction manual which will tell you what the settings are in there. To switch this off, a long press on the wheel and that switches it off. Just one important thing to note: if you have got this switched on, and let's say you're running on electric, and then you disconnect the electric cable without switching this off, it'll go to like a failure mode. So I know it's difficult, but you probably need to remember to switch this off before disengaging the electric supply. Underneath that we have the fridge freezer. Okay, so it's opened via those catches there. If you leave this fridge door closed for any length of time, you'll get stagnant air building up in here and it'll start to smell. So they've built in a little catch here, as you can see, to leave the door slightly ajar. So if you just put that into the catch there, you can see it's going to leave the door slightly ajar. Obviously the magnetic seal just seals the door. You'll get stagnant air building up in there. To switch the fridge on, you press the button like so. This is a smart three-way fridge. So what that basically means is it will select its own power source if you tell it to, and you do that by pressing this button here. So this button here will scroll you through the various power sources. So you've got, it'll run on gas, it'll run on mains electric, which is that one there, and it'll run from the engine. It will only run from the engine when the engine is running. It's not very efficient. It will only keep it cool once you've cooled it on gas or electric. The third option, being a three-way fridge, is A, auto. That will automatically select the most relevant power source. So it'll look for electric first, then it'll try and find gas, and then it'll try and find the 12 volt. If it doesn't find any of those, which will be the case in a second, it will go to fail. You then need to switch it off and switch it back on and ensure that you've got all the power sources readily available. This is your temperature control. The reason for that is if it's really, really hot, let's say you're abroad, you want the fridge to work harder, so you'd set it to the top. If it's freezing cold outside, the ambient temperature is really cold, then there's no point making the fridge work hard, it'll just freeze up. Okay, so that's the reason for the temperature control. As you can see, we've gone to fail because we don't have any power connected to this at the moment. So what you'd have to do in that instance is switch this off with a long press on there, make sure the power's connected and start the process again. Okay, so we've got an oven there, dead straightforward. The grill is on that side, the oven's on that side. These are gas isolation taps. You shouldn't need to do anything with those unless there's a problem with one of the gas appliances. So they individually isolate the gas supply to individual appliances. Hob, dead straightforward again. I don't know if this has got ignition on it. It doesn't, so you will need a matches or a lighter for that. Okay, so moving on to the washroom, you've got the shower. The board comes out of there for when the shower's in use, and then these doors slide across to use the shower. So that board comes out. That's a protective board. If you wanted to put that in when the shower's in use, it just protects the plastic shower tray. This door will slide across like so to isolate the rear of the motorhome and the washroom from the bedroom area. And then if you want to isolate the bedroom area from the shower room, this curtain draws across here. Okay, so the toilet function. To use the toilet, basically lift the lid up. This here opens and closes that blade which I showed you on the cassette. So lift the lid up, open the blade, use the toilet, press the flush button, which is this here, and then close the blade up. It's important that you close the blade. If the blade's left open and you've got toilet waste in there, as you're driving, then you can imagine it'll slosh around. I think there is an indication, a little light that'll come on somewhere on here to tell you that the cassette's full, but in actual fact, as soon as you open the blade, you can see the level because the liquid that's used for the toilet cassette is bright blue. Okay, so this is an island bed model. You can remove that little section there to push the mattress up so you've got more access around the bed during the day. The water boiler, when you first fill up with water, fill up the water tank, which I've already showed you, it's necessary to feed all that water through all the pipework in the motorhome and then eventually feed it out of your taps. So what you need to do is fill up the water tank, open up your tap on hot, so whether you do it on this tap or the kitchen tap or the shower, basically all three is better. Open up this tap, the pump will run and then it'll eventually pump the water through all the pipework, fill up the boiler, and then you'll get a pure flow of water coming out of your tap. When you first switch this on, it'll splutter away. That means that there's still air in the pipes. When you get a pure flow of water, you know that your boiler is full and you can then switch it on. There's no point switching your boiler on until you've done that, because otherwise you're just heating thin air in your boiler. Okay, so to switch the pump on, there's a little micro switch inside these taps, so the pump will only run when the tap is open. Okay, so the boiler is housed underneath this bed. It's 10 litres. Just go in here where the boiler is. So that is the boiler. That deals with the heating and the hot water of the motorhome. So you can see the pipes leading to it. They're the ones that you need to fill as described by opening up your tap. This has a drain valve on it. Now this is probably the most important bit that you need to drain down. It has a thermostatic sensor in it. If the temperature reaches 6 degrees and the boiler is not switched on, this will automatically drop all the water out of the boiler to protect it. At the moment, that's in the open position, so if it's left like that and you open up your taps, all that will happen is the water will just spill onto the floor. To close it and retain all the water in the boiler, what you need to do is that diamond shape on the top there, you need to turn that round, and there's a little button on the front there that you need to press in. So it must look like that in order for the boiler to be operational. If it's like that, there's no point switching your taps on because it'll just spill onto the floor. So just to reiterate, that is probably the most important bit of maintenance when the vehicle isn't in use. that must be drained down, otherwise you'll damage the boiler if it freezes. This model's got a drop down bed, and to drop that down you press that across and just simply pull the bed down, and that's what the ladder is for in the garage. Okay, so that completes the video. I'm sure there'll be some questions. I've tried to cover all the main operational and functional parts of the motorhome, but if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer those in the interim between now and the collection of the motorhome. But I'm also happy to run through anything on the day that you collect your new Carado motorhome. So we look forward to seeing you soon.